Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 yada la 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Well, tonight's service has Erwin Chemerinsky, the Dean of the Law School of UC Berkeley, and even though he lives up in Berkeley, still a member of our congregation, University Synagogue. Erwin is graciously going to be here tonight talking about making America Mentschlich again, talking about the rule of law, talking about the ideals our country needs to stand for. So it's a delight to have him. And the Young Cantors, our teen Young Cantors, are going to be singing tonight as well. There's, earlier this week, I wrote a letter about Groundhog Day, about how we feel, as in that 1993 movie, that we are trapped, that we are living in a world of repetition, a world of monotony and sometimes boredom. But how does Phil Connors, the protagonist played by Bill Murray, how does Phil Connors transcend his feeling entrapped by becoming a mensch, by actualizing his best self, by growing up? Well, that's the challenge we face as well. How to use this time wisely, this time in which we're incubating. It can be a time of much more than the curse of isolation. It can be the blessing of isolation, the blessing of reflection, the blessing of intention, the blessing of kavanah. And that's what I wish for all of you during these days that we are alone together, that we are doing the right thing, that we're saving other people, that we're protecting ourselves and our family. I wish you the transcendence of the limitation of isolation and the beauty of incubation, of thinking about what the next part of the journey of your life will be. I wish you savlanut, patience, and I wish you hope. We join together for the blessing over the Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
We join together singing Shalom Aleichem. You'll find it on page 1 of your prayer books.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Elyon, Nihi Melech, Malchi Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. בואכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ברכוני לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. צאתכם לשלום, מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please wish those around you Shabbat Shalom. Greet
Shabbat
them.
Shalom.
And if you're alone tonight, wish us Shabbat
Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom.
We wish you Shabbat Shalom as well. Going to read a reading before we join for Lecha Dodi and Baruch Hu, a reading that will focus us before these prayers that our young cantors will sing. All over the world, people are slowing down and reflecting. All over the world, people are looking at their neighbors in a new way. All over the world, people are waking up to a new reality, to what really matters. They're waking up to love. So we pray and we remember that, yes, there is fear, but there does not have to be hate. Yes, there is isolation, but there does not have to be loneliness. Yes, there is sickness, but there does not have to be disease in the soul. And yes, there is sadly even death, but there can always be the rebirth of love. Wake to the choices you make as to how you will live now. Today, breathe, listen behind the noises of panic. Listen, the birds are singing again. The sky is clearing. Spring is here, and we are encompassed by love. Open the windows of your soul, and though you may not be able to touch across the empty square, you can sing. We join with the young cantors in singing Lecha Dodi and Baruch Hu.
Lecha Dodi, בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אליו יוחד. אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. lecha dodi לקראת קלה, on your door and opening the door, welcoming the Kala. Bohi veshalom ateret bala gam besimcha vetzola toch emunei am sekula bohi chala Here are some words to prepare us for the Shema. We are here, together as one people, one community. We've joined to share in this treasured moment together as we transition from the hectic demands of life and daily routines. We are invited to leave the week behind. Let go of what has been. Let go of what will be, and enter a place of stillness and sacred space and time. As the sun begins to set, breathe in the glow of the sunset and pause. Breathe out the stresses of the week. Breathe in the calm of nightfall and pause. Breathe out and feel a sense of release. Breathe in the radiance of the moon and stars and pause. Breathe out all thoughts of doing and become one with present moment. Feel the warmth of relaxation wash over you. Breathe in the radiant light and pause. Feel your mind become open and unfettered. Breathe out and feel your soul become freed to soar to new heights. Breathe in the calm and pause. Feel yourself surrender. Breathe out everything and focus only on now. And feel your body, mind, and soul become whole and at peace. Now we are finally ready to turn our attention toward Shabbat, to savor all that Shabbat provides and become enveloped by holiness. as we breathe in and out once more. We pause and welcome in Shabbat.
We join on page 4, chanting the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Evaher. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
We turn to page 50 in our prayer books, and we're all well aware of how people are risking their lives, medical personnel, people who transport other people on buses, people who work in grocery stores, people who are essential workers. And we hope and pray that they will avoid any harm to themselves as they help people heal. But we know that inevitably, even these essential workers will sadly sometimes become ill. We know that there's more patients of every age, so many more than we expected. First, it was going to be a disease just of much older people, and then people in their 40s and 50s got it. And now lately, we're discovering so many children who have a form of COVID-19. So we pray and sing and chant for healing. Healing for those in hospitals, healing for those at home, healing for those essential workers who have found themselves ill. We join together, page 15, the Song of Healing, UC Berkeley.
מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Yishe beirach imoteinu, mekor habracha
Now, these words were written by a group from a Reconstructionist congregation, or Kaddish, and they wrote these words just in the last few weeks, and I want to share them with you because they fit especially into our theme this evening about making America Mentschlich again. What do I desire for my country? How do I envision the land that I love? Let it be a land where knowledge is free, where people live together as brothers and sisters, a land where we emerge from this pandemic with more caring and a greater appreciation for each other. A land where no one is forced to go to bed hungry or live on the streets. A land where everyone loves themselves well enough so that they love their fellow human beings as themselves, as we are commanded. A land with a wise, humane leader to serve as a role model for our country. A land where our leaders speak truth and truly work for the greater good. A land of compassion where we all work and play together, where poles of separation become poles of mutual support and understanding, where reason wins out over blind faith, where we recover our historic ethic of voluntary community commitment, where our vision is restored to embrace humanity, inclusiveness, and empathy, a land where the light within each of us can begin to illumine the world, where as we care for each other, we don't forget to care for our fragile earth, and where there is equitable medical care for all. A land where we have economic security and justice for all. A land where kids are free to be happy and thrive and grow. A land that once again becomes the huddled masses yearning to be free. A land where we all have the support and love of community, a land where we work together for the good of all, a land where the mind is led forward into ever-widening thought and action. Into that land, into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake.
I'd like to sing a song that talks about that, reminds us of the America that could be, the America that is inclusive, that is fair, America of justice. The song is called Power and Glory. Come on and take a walk with me through this green and growing land. Walk through the meadows and the mountains and the sand. Walk through the valleys and the rivers and the plains. Walk through the sun and walk through the rain. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. But her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all. Yes, she's only as rich as the poorest of the poor, only as free as the padlocked prison door, only as strong as our love for this land, only as tall as we stand. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot recall. But her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all. But her land is still Still troubled by those who have to hate. They twist away our freedom and they twist away our faith. Fear is their weapon and anger their cry. We can change it if we try. Here is a land full of power and glory, beauty that words cannot record. But her power shall rest on the strength of her freedom. Her glory shall rest on us all, on us all.
That song by Phil Oakes is a reminder of the importance of making our country Mentschlich. And that is the topic of my interview with Erwin Chemerinsky, the Dean of the Law School at UC Berkeley. And following my interview with Erwin, we'll return for Kiddush and then Mourners Kaddish. Thank you, Erwin, for being here. It's my great pleasure to have tonight the UC Berkeley Law School Dean, Erwin Chemerinsky, a renowned constitutional law scholar, a graduate of Northwestern University, Harvard Law School. He taught at USC for 2 decades, Duke, created the UC Irvine Law School, and now is the 13th dean at Berkeley. And of course, every year, Dean Chemerinsky is at our biblical trial defending those in the Torah and in the Tanakh that need a good lawyer to win the case. He's the author of 11 books, over 200 law review articles. He writes op-eds for the LA Times, and I thought in one of the most sweet descriptions of him by a student publication, Erwin Chemerinsky is one of 23 law professors that you have to take before you die. So it's our pleasure, while we're very much in life, to have Erwin Chemerinsky with us. So Erwin, I want to begin by asking you about the issue of the rule of law is at risk, as President Obama recently said. And he's been very quiet during the Trump years. And another criminal attorney said, I have never seen anything like this about the Flynn case. So tell me how the rule of law is at risk.
Let me just say thank you for having me part of the conversation, and thank you for the kind introduction. The one thing you left out is I remain a very enthusiastic member of University Synagogue.
Yes, and we are so proud that you are.
To me, the rule of law is that no one, not even the president, is above the law. And yet I've never seen in my lifetime, and I think it's never been in American history, an administration that so sees itself as above the law. In fact, we once saw a quote from President Trump that says, when somebody is president, the authority is total. Those are his exact words. That's not consistent with the rule of law. It's not consistent with our Constitution or democratic society. You mentioned what just happened last week with Michael Flynn. Michael Flynn lied to FBI agents. That's a federal crime. Michael Flynn was also in an investigation for making payments to foreign governments in violation of federal law. He pled guilty. He admitted to his crimes in open court. And now, notwithstanding that, the Justice Department has said it's going to drop all charges against him. This isn't consistent with the rule of law. This is subverting the rule of law to the political preference of the president and the attorney general.
You know, you were onto these problems very early, because I remember you spoke out against emoluments literally within days after the inauguration. So we have emoluments, we have Ukraine, we have collusion with Russia. We have the suppression by Attorney General Barr of the real meaning of the Mueller report, and now, of course, of these latest cases. We have the attacks on whistleblowers. I don't think any of us have ever seen anything like this. So the question is, what can we as citizens do to make a difference?
And I think all the examples you mentioned and so many more do come back to the rule of law. The question is, are we going to be a nation of laws, or are we going to just follow the political preferences of who's in office at the moment in time? The emoluments example that you mentioned, the Constitution is clear that those who hold federal office cannot receive benefits from foreign governments or benefits in the United States other than the salary paid for the office. And yet literally every day, President Trump has been violating this clause, and it continues now 3 years plus into his presidency. Or with regard to Ukraine, the General Accounting Office found that President Trump violated federal law by diverting money appropriated by Congress and keeping it from being spent with regard to aid to the Ukraine. That, of course, was why the House of Representatives impeached him. Or we could talk about how President Trump was responsible for American government being shut down for a longer period than ever in American history because Congress wouldn't appropriate money for the border wall. When he was forced to reopen government, he illegally diverted money from other purposes for the border wall. The spending power is quintessentially in the hands of Congress, and yet he violated the Constitution here. To me, all of these are about subverting the rule of law. What can we do about it? Well, obviously, the most important thing is going to be involvement with regard to the November 2020 election. I know we are totally nonpartisan in this conversation. People should always vote their conscience, and that's all we can say. But if people are concerned about these things, it's so important to become involved in any way we can in educating others, in getting out the vote in November. I also think that the way we as individuals can have an effect is by joining with others. And there are terrific organizations as to all of these issues. And I think what we need to do is be part of those organizations, to lend our voice and our other forms of support to help them go forward.
Do you think our country, and this has been spoken about by a number of people with a big question mark, is our country resilient enough to bounce back, to make America Mentschlich again? Is our country, are our institutions strong enough to bounce back after 4 years? Are they resilient enough after 8 years if necessary?
I think the most that can be said at this moment in time is that I hope so. The institutions of American government have existed since 1787. For the first 60 plus years of American history, there was slavery. It survived. There was civil war. It survived. There was World War I, there was the Great Depression, there was World War II, there was the recession of a decade ago. Will we come through this? I remember you were kind enough to ask me to speak at a Shabbat service in December of 2016. And I expressed concern for what the Trump presidency would be based on the themes of his campaign. I have to tell you, it's much worse with regard to the rule of law than I could have ever imagined. I want to hope that the institutions are resilient enough that we will be able to go forward to normalcy after 4 or even after 8 years. But I don't think we can know at this point in time. And I also want to focus on a word that you used, Mentschlich. I think one of the things that we've become inured to is the way in which the president has spoken of others in a way we've never seen of a president. The insults directed at people, the name calling, the nastiness. And so whether you're for him or against him politically, it seems to me we should all want to see a return, I'll use your word, to something more Mentschlich in the way we talk about and treat others.
It is quite shocking. I think even his supporters, even if they have their reasons that they can enumerate, even if those reasons are only one or two, they generally don't support, at least the ones that I've encountered, they generally don't support his name calling and his demeaning of people. And yet they hang on. And when they hang on, they give strength to more formal enablers, like those in the Senate, or those in the House, or those in the White House staff, those who have been there for a short while. There has been a whole group of people who have entered to work at the White House and then have been dismissed. How do you explain the psychology of the enablers? In their defense, they said, well, it would be worse if we weren't there. And then they're out the door. And then they start to think about writing books.
I think in large part, it's instrumental. I think that President Trump has helped them achieve other goals they have. For many Republicans, it's what he's done with regard to the Supreme Court or the lower federal courts. It was interesting whether evangelicals would support Trump in 2016 because of all sorts of things we can identify about him. But in opinion polls, they said they did so because they wanted him to put staunch conservatives on the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts. He succeeded in doing that. He has put 2 staunch conservatives on the Supreme Court, and he's appointed about 200 federal judges at this point. So they've gotten what they wanted in that regard. And so because he advances their ideological agenda, they're willing to accept those other things. I think also there's still a part of the population that likes the way that he talks and treats others, that it's not refined, that it is direct. But it's frightening to me. A week ago, almost 2 weeks ago now, President George W. Bush did a plea for national unity. And President Trump mocked President Bush and said, where was he for unity when I was subjected to a hoax impeachment? We should hope that whoever our president is, Democratic or Republican, liberal or conservative, would want to advance national unity at this difficult time. But that's not who President Trump is. Unity has never been his message.
Yeah, let me ask you, your last 2 books have been on free speech and on freedom of religion, I believe. And so in terms of free speech, we have a problem with white supremacists, neo-Nazis. They were always there, but they were given a doorway in. The door maybe was open to crack, and now it's a little bit wider. There's now Zoom bombing, very much on a call like this. The president of Yeshiva University, synagogues around the country. Our own Hebrew school had a Zoom bombing incident, which our educational director, Sue Penn, was able to thwart, where people put up a swastika or nasty language. So what are the limits of free speech when it comes to vile language and perhaps even more vile behavior online?
People are allowed to express their ideas and views, no matter how offensive they might be. There's a right for people to express hate. There's a right for people to wear swastikas. That's part of a country that's committed to the expression of ideas. And the notion here is we're better off letting even hate be expressed than giving government the power to choose what messages can and can't be said. However, there is no right ever to destroy or deface the property of another. To use my example, if someone wants to wear a t-shirt with a swastika, they can do so, but they have no right to paint a swastika in my garage. Zoom bombing with hate or a swastika is like painting it on my garage. That's a crime. And we've had it in the context of a law school event, and we turned it over to the police to investigate. So there's the right to express the hateful message, but how and where it's expressed can be limited by law.
So let me ask you about freedom of religion. There are churches that have remained open during the COVID-19 crisis, and they claim freedom of religion. They claim that they are an essential service to the community, that they're answering to a higher authority. But just like shouting fire in a theater is the exception with free speech, how about spreading virus in a church?
To start with, the government can take the actions that are reasonable to stop the spread of a communicable disease. That can include quarantining people or shelter-in-place orders. It can include business closure orders, so long as it's reasonably about protecting public health. When it comes to spread of communicable disease, the government therefore can stop people from assembling. The assembly might be for speech purpose and protest. The assembly might be for religious worship, but the government constitutionally can still stop people from gathering. Also, the United States Supreme Court said 30 years ago that generally religions get no exception from the law. And so if there's a law that requires paying a minimum wage or a law that prohibits use of peyote, religions don't get an exception. And so they don't get an exception from closure orders either.
Erwin, I want to thank you so much for being with us here on Shabbat. You are one of the wisest and most articulate people I know, and certainly what we need in today's discourse all around this country and this world is wisdom. So thank you for that.
You're very sweet, and I hope we'll be able to do the rescheduled biblical trial this fall.
We certainly will.
I wish you and Rudy and all the members of your family and everyone in the congregation good health and happiness at this difficult time.
Thank you, and to Catherine and the kids as well. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erwin, for being here with us. And now please join us for Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen l'chaim.
We join together for the traditional motzi and the modern egalitarian motziyah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המוציא לחם מן הארץ, נברך את עין החיים, המוציאה לחם מן הארץ. בתיאבון.
We conclude our services tonight with Mourners Kaddish, Kaddish Yatom. Please turn to page 11 and rise. We think of so many who have passed away during this pandemic. Their names may not be known to us in great measure, but the enormity of the deaths that our country and our world are facing is so beyond expectation. We have to do everything we can to flatten the curve so that we don't have a second wave, so that we behave properly so we don't elongate this first wave. We think of those from our own families whom we miss. Perhaps it's a yahrzeit. We think of those who have passed away during this past year and we miss them. For all those whom we remember, zichronam livracha, their memories are a blessing to us all. We join together, page 11. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbi, v'yalmad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yamechon uv'chayei b'chol beit Yisrael, v'galav zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbi mevarach v'yalam bolomei al-maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitraseh. Yitadar, Yitalev, Yitalal, Shmei Kudsha, Briachu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. We join together singing words of peace on us, on our people, and all humanity. Oseh shalom.
Oseh shalom b'imramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael.
Shalom,
Shabbat
everyone.
Shalom.
Erwin Chemerinsky, thank you for being with us, and happy birthday to you.
Happy
and
birthday.
Thank you to the Young Cantors as well. Everybody, Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.